add value to your business, or do you want to just be this administrative person?
And often, if you look at your talent team and the caliber of talent in your company, they correlate.
You could hire the best person for the job if they were in your candidate pool.
All these individual employees, one by one, together, their voices all come together to articulate the culture of the company.
This is
Hiring on all cylinders.
Hello, podcast land. Welcome back to Hiring on All Cylinders. I am Rob Stevenson. I am situated in the most radiant, effusive, glowing Intello booth here at the ERE Recruiting Conference in beautiful San Diego. And over the next few days, I'm going to be meeting with all manner of recruiting pros. I went on an email/Twitter rampage over the past 10 days, just harassing the speakers at the conference, asking them to join me. And to my great surprise, not all of them ignored me. And the first of whom is Andrew Farrell. Farrell,
yeah. Like Colin Farrell.
As in Colin, right.
Yeah, as in Colin Farrell. Yeah.
File this under things I should ask you before we start recording. But
spelled like Colin Farrell, not Will Ferrell.
Right,
Although
right.
I wish it was more like Will Ferrell.
Yeah. You're over at Alfresco, the head of talent there, and you have a session. Really interested to hear about what you're going to be talking about. We can get into that later, but
sure.
Before we do that, yesterday we were just having a chat at the cocktail reception, and I was selfishly like, oh man, I wish I had the microphones on right now, because you and another attendee here got into quality of hire, and how that was like, in your opinion, why that is the best way to get for talent to get a seat at the table when it comes to getting budget and buy-in from the C-levels. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's a really interesting conversation. I think a lot of people in the HR tech space and just recruiting in general right now are trying to figure out how do you connect what recruitment does to the boardroom.
Right.
Not necessarily the board of directors, but at the C-level and the most important conversations in the business, how do you really showcase and prove the impact that recruitment has? So there's a lot of different schools of thought on how to do that, right? I think the industry has gotten pretty good in connecting the business impact to things like time to fill, right? We know that if you reduce time to fill by X amount, that's going to improve business results from a lot of different perspectives.
Sure.
Could be calculated by cost of vacancy, right? And the less amount of, or the
opportunity cost of not having that team in place and the productivity
the shorter time a role is open, you're not wasting as much money because you could have somebody in the seat generating revenue for you. So that's probably one of the more, I don't want to say traditional ways to calculate impact, but one of the things that I've noticed in the last couple of years is that there really isn't a good, solid way to connect quality talent and improving the quality of your talent to those conversations. It's still, and I was talking to Scott about this last night, it's a really soft metric, if you can even call it that at this point, in terms of how getting better people each month, each quarter, each year improves business results.
Sure.
And we kind of instinctively know that you hire a better person, they're going to be more productive, but how do you quantify that?
Right.
So that's kind of the mission that I'm on this year. I really want to figure out how can you really showcase in a repeatable fashion the business impact that improving quality of hire has on a business. So we're starting to do some of that stuff at Alfresco, and I will fully attest to the fact that I will never be the guy that says I've arrived, right?
We did
it. And now we don't have to worry about it ever again. I'll use an analogy that a friend of mine used a couple. Actually, it was just last week at the Smart Recruiters Users Conference. A buddy of mine, Yannick, who runs recruitment over at Equinox, used the analogy of the infinite circle of winning, or the infinite loop of winning, right? And it's some days you're doing really well in that infinite loop of winning, and some days you're losing. But every day you have a new chance to win and improve on something that you were doing yesterday or trying to make better. So this year, one of my big focuses is going to be how do we play the infinite loop of winning around quality of hire? How do we really start to understand if we're trying to help our people managers and our C-level execs improve the quality of talent in their organization each and every month, every quarter, every year, what's the business impact of that? So one of the things that we're starting to try out is at 6-month intervals after time of hire, taking another assessment of that individual. A lot of applicant tracking systems today do a really good job of giving you, quality, application quality metrics, right? And they'll give you a sense of, at the time an offer was extended, what was the average quality score of candidates that came through this particular source, right?
Okay, based on the feedback of the interviewing team?
Exactly, yeah. And that's how most applicant tracking systems will collect that feedback.
Right.
Some do it on a 10-point scale, some do it on a 5. It's really no different. But in most applicant tracking systems, you can see through all my different sources that I could find people through, what are my highest quality sources? And that hopefully informs you to go back to the beginning of the recruitment process and start looking for talent in the areas that pay off most for you.
Okay.
There's a difference, though, between quality taken at time of hire or time of offer and 6 months down the line.
Of course, yeah.
9 months, 12 months. And there's a conversation that has to be had in between the time an offer is generated and then like a real first performance management conversation, right? We want to start feeding information back into the recruiting cycle as soon as possible about, okay, is this person that we hired the person that we thought we were getting?
Right.
Do they still measure up to the criteria that we built, and are they delivering for the business? So and usually on these shows and in conferences, whenever I get the chance to talk to folks, I try to be as specific as possible because I think it helps people take away specific ideas of what they could try in their own organization. So one thing that we're starting to do is implement a program where, say, 6 months after somebody was hired, go back and have the hiring manager, the people manager, reassess that person based on the same scorecard or set of criteria that they were initially hired for.
Right, okay.
So best practice, if you hate that term as much as I do, that everybody starts to think about or is using these days is about, building the competency-based or the behavior-based profiles before going out to hire. That's all well and good. That's not a new idea. But if we're all using these, and if we're not at the point yet in a yearly review cycle for that individual, we can use that set of criteria, say 6 months down the line, to help us understand, okay, did we get the person that we thought we were getting? So, and have they adapted to our environment within our current business cycle and our environment? Are they actually a productive employee?
Right.
So what we're going to start doing is having every hiring manager, people manager, 6 months after they hired a new person, go back and reassess them based on the scorecard or the set of criteria that we used to hire them in the first place.
Okay, just so you can make sure you're comparing them fairly and
Exactly.
consistently.
Exactly,
So
yeah.
it sounds like the divide though between that kind of quality of hire at the ATS level, which is essentially like if it's a 5-point scale, a 10-point scale, it sounds like like an NPS score basically.
Yeah.
But if you want to put it in terms of this is the actual business impact these people made, as opposed to, hey, C-level, we made good hires. These are people that are doing a good job according to their team and their
or X
manager.
percent of our people managers said, yes, I would hire this person again.
Again, right.
And that's a great way to get an initial assessment of, are we hiring the right people? But in my view, that doesn't go far enough.
That's my question. So the next step is how do you say, all right, specifically, here is the business impact that this high quality hire made?
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing that we have to solve for. I don't really have a good answer to that yet. And from talking to folks in the industry, I don't think anybody else really has a good answer yet for that either. So that's my mission this year.
It's probably, with some roles, it's easier than others, right? Sales, you have a squoreboard, right?
Sure,
that's
exactly.
A pretty easy one. But then engineering, amount of code you shipped or amount of bugs you resolved. I mean, there's no way to quantify exactly that impact.
What the business impact of that is.
Right.
For revenue generating roles, for sales, for customer success, anything where you bring in new logos or you renew the business, it's a little bit easier to justify or quantify what the business impact is, right? But for engineers, for DevOps, for operations roles, how are these people helping move the business forward? And if you can prove to your C-level staff, hey, for engineering, for product, for, IT, we increased your quality benchmark score from a 3.5 to a 4.1. What does that 0.6 delta actually mean for the business? I don't think anybody has a good answer for that yet.
Okay. Well, even that difference, too, is illustrative of the talent team bringing in better pipeline, right? And iterating the process and finding better candidates, and then also hopefully that the hiring team is getting better at developing talent as well. So that's also a positive indicator.
Sure. Yeah, and I think right now, though, a lot of it is just based on those instincts that we have, right? We know that, just philosophically speaking, if you're improving that quality score, bringing in better people is a good thing, right? But what specifically does that mean for the business? So that's what we're going to try to figure out and see if we can't come up with a better way to quantify that, so that when it comes time, or if we feel a need within the people organization to add more capacity, to add more technology and tools, we actually have data that we can use to justify why we need extra support, extra resources, and where specifically it needs to go. And so for something like, just so podcast land knows what's going on, I've been a huge Intello fan for a while. We've unfortunately never had the chance to bring it into the organization, but hopefully if we play our cards right, we'll be able to bring the tool on board in the next couple, let's say, months or so.
I love it.
But part of how I am justifying or trying to make the case for a tool like Intello is based on quality of hire, and not quality of hire, again, taken at time of offer, quality of hire taken at time of, say, 6-month review down the line.
Yep.
That's going to be a much better justification for, why do I need X amount of dollars to go spend on a tool like this?
Right.
It's because we actually have real data of successful employees that proves that our most successful folks came through XYZ source of hire. Whether it's a specific piece of technology, or it's a, say it's a company background that folks have transitioned really well from, but also it gives us some cool insight into the behaviors that those successful people brought to the table that maybe we didn't uncover the first time around when we built that role profile.
And that informs the sourcing process,
Correct.
The interviewing process. So now you're looking for more, like, what are the qualities of the high performers? Like, let's bake that into the job description and into our search.
Exactly. And a lot of companies try to nail that the first time. Most don't get it right. It's a lot of iteration,
of course.
Right? And not only are figuring out which actual sources am I hiring better people from, but what behaviors do we need to continue to be looking for or refining as we hunt for better and better people.
Definitely. So this comes up a lot, this idea of how can the talent team best orient themselves and, I guess, for lack of a better term, conduct internal PR with the C-levels.
Sure.
And the answer is always metrics, right? Come to the table with your numbers.
Yeah.
Okay, great. But if you say things like, if you come with, here's like number of hires, here's time to fill, like that's all evidence that the talent team is doing their job, that they are doing
Sure.
the thing that they are expected to do.
That there's activity there.
Right?
Yeah.
And and correct me if I'm getting this wrong, but it seems like your point with quality of hire is that you're tying the talent team to a revenue generating center as opposed to a cost center.
Correct. That's
So,
the
like,
ultimate goal.
This impact that these teams are having, this increase in their productivity, this is tied back to the talent team.
Yeah, that's the goal. That's absolutely the goal, is to, with data, with metrics, like everybody's asking for,
Right.
make the case that this is a value-added function in some of the most important ways, as opposed to just simply a cost center or an administrative function. That's
Exactly.
been how it's been thought of for a number of years prior to now.
Yeah, definitely. So the other question I have, though, is this really the role of the talent team to calculate and increase quality of hire? Because
Interesting.
all of that happens post hire, right? And
Sure.
so if you have a great hiring manager who's focused on developing talent, then perhaps, or is themselves a great hirer of talent,
Sure.
you're going to have a higher quality score. So if so much of that happens post hire, how much of it is really the talent team's fault or to their credit?
Sure, that's a good point. I think assessing quality of hire and when it happens, I think it depends on your organization and where you are in your story of evolution, right?
Mm-hmm.
And not to back out of this conversation too much, but obviously there's a lot of schools of thought on how you organize a talent team,
Yep.
right? There is the white glove, tactical team, right? Who's there to do all the sourcing and, find the best possible candidates and do all the screening, interviewing, and just present the top, best 3 candidates to the hiring manager, who doesn't really ever have to get involved. That's kind of an older way of thinking about it, where, recruitment has to produce a hire out of the black box.
Right.
A lot of companies, though, are, especially smaller organizations like ours, like Alfresco, are moving towards, don't necessarily want to call it a decentralized model of hiring, but a model where really the hiring manager, the people manager, has to take ultimate accountability for hiring success.
Yep.
There was an article that Google wrote a couple years ago, and I'll try to give credit where credit is due, but I can't remember the author and I can't remember when it was published. But it basically makes the case that no matter how strong the relationship is between candidate and recruiter, they're not coming here to work for me or my team.
Right.
They're coming here to work for the hiring manager. And just because of that simple fact, that means the people manager needs to make building and maintaining a great team job number one.
Yep.
Has to. So in that school of thought, if that's what you subscribe to, the talent acquisition team then becomes more of a, let's call it, of a coaching and advising and business partnering team that still has the ability to go hunt down talent that we're not seeing just walk into our funnel,
Yep.
but gives a backstop of coaching to people managers that need it, right? That helps them be the best possible people manager and hiring manager that they can be. So just for example, again, because I love using specifics and telling stories, at Alfresco, that's the model that we run, right? So we firmly believe, and this was kind of last year's quest, and again, it's never over, but something that I think we've done a lot of great work on is getting our hiring managers to sit in the driver's seat around hiring success, right? It's not recruitment's job to magically produce the hire. You know, it's no longer do we really have that many hiring managers coming up to my team and I saying, well, hey, I haven't gotten many interviews lately. Where's my candidates? Hiring managers are now starting to understand that this is job number one, right? So what my team gets involved to do is not just be the business partner and the sounding board and the advisor in the areas of, all things best practice in recruitment, talking about candidate experience, talking about, how to best, shape an assessment process if a hiring manager doesn't understand that or if they haven't been through training. But then also, we make our hiring managers own the inbound funnel within our applicant tracking system. Any application, any employee referral, anything that comes inbound, the hiring manager is responsible for reviewing, which gives my team and I more time to go focus on hunting down the skills and competencies that we're not seeing in our funnel to begin with.
Okay.
So back to your original question of where does measuring quality of hire come into play and what role does the talent team have? If you've built a model where it is more of the decentralized approach and talent is here to be the coach, be the advisor, and maybe do some sharpshooting every once in a while, that really offers an opportunity or time for the talent team then to help the hiring manager understand where are my best people coming from? What do I need to be looking for, and how can I, as a people manager, hire better people each and every day? Because you absolutely are who you hire. You absolutely are. So I guess the point I'm trying to make is that the philosophy stems from the idea that talent is here to make the hiring manager and the people manager look like an all-star each and every day.
I love it. I don't think we're going to find a better bookend than that. So,
yeah, Andrew,
this has been awesome. Thank you so much for joining me. Quality of hire, figure it out.
Yeah.
Use it to position the talent team.
Yeah, I'd love to hear from anybody that has ideas on how we as an industry can better make this case and take this concept of hiring better people and higher quality individuals every day, how we can take that to the boardroom. So would love to hear from anybody. Feel free to reach out if you have an idea.
Yeah, if I hear anything, I'll pass it along.
Yeah, please do. Thanks, Rob.